My name is Paul.
And I'm Andy, and we're from a design practice called Something & Son. We do various projects. They're always changing, depending on what the brief is or where the place is, but we're going to be talking about one of our projects in Dalston called Farm Shop.
I think it's important to start, particularly here in Femi. This was the project that really got us kind of started. I mean, I was in a really crappy office job, doing something I wasn't really enjoying, sort of sitting at a computer tapping away, and this is kind of being thrown full-blown into a project. It's one of the best things I think that can happen to you to get excited and kickstart you to do new things. But when we started the project, I suppose we started with a really simple idea. We had the opportunity of taking over an empty building, and we had very quickly the idea of a farm in a shop, a farm shop, and that's what we'll be talking about today. But I guess it started, I suppose, from a passion or a kind of enthusiasm for things that were wrong about food. You know, we all love eating food. We kind of it's a major part of our daily lives. But food is kind of really messed up at the moment. You've got kind of packaged lettuce like that, which comes from 3 different countries. It says on the back. It's packaged in a protective atmosphere and is very, very far from the type of food that we all used to enjoy many, many years ago. We went down to, this was in Brixton Market where I live this morning, and got some Thai basil, which is looking rather jet lagged from its journey down a very, very long way, just so we can enjoy that. And we wanted to kind of shed light on perhaps a new way of doing things, kind of answer our own questions about could farming be better, and why is farming like it is. And I think the biggest problem with farming at the moment is actually that people don't go to farms. You know, we rely on all of these labels. We rely on fair trade, organic, barn-fed, kind of free-range, factory farming. Who actually really knows the difference unless you've actually been and seen a farm? And so instead of taking the whole of the city out to the farm, we thought we'd bring a little farm into a city, and we had an empty building of which to try this experiment.
And we'd heard stories of how they used to farm in London in the 19th century, earliest 20th century. Things like there were chickens on the roofs up until 1920. You did used to have pigs in the backyard, and they did used to grow a lot more food within the city. And we were sort of inspired by that. We didn't really have any idea about growing food. We had seen visuals of vertical farming, people making whole skyscrapers and putting food within these structures, but we were more interested in within the actual existing city framework and how we can adapt that and turn it into a food growing situation.
And we started with that idea, with the poster you just saw sort of flick off the screen.
Our slideshow's on a timer, and I didn't realise that. So it's going to be we're going to have to flip back all the time.
That picture there. So we started with this big idea: how much food can we grow in a shop? And a collection of ideas around that. The next step with the poster was actually to kind of get it out there, and so we emailed it to a few friends, and then it found its way sort of very trickily onto the internet, and then sort of the idea seemed to explode before we'd even done anything. We just had an empty shop and a pair of keys, and suddenly there were people talking about it. The result of that was that the first weekend we did get the keys and pushed aside the big heap of mail in this old building, was that there were 100 people there ready to help. And they turned up, and I think they were just inspired perhaps by the simplicity of the idea, a farm and a shop. You know what a farm is, you know what a shop is, you know where it is, you can turn up and help. And we put that plea out to help and get people.
That's the sort of running theme with all our projects. We always try and make it so you can explain it in one sentence, because that allows people to go away and then explain it to the next person, and it sort of, what's the word?
Multiplying.
Yeah, probably. Right. Turns into something bigger.
Yeah, and I think we were completely sort of ignorant about what we were doing as well, which perhaps quite helpful. We hadn't had any sort of official farming background or training, and so we were able to actually go out and ask others for help, and we work with fantastic organisations like Aquaponics UK, who specialise in growing fish and plants together, and hydroponicists and people coming off the street who were passionate about these things and looked after chickens in the past. We were amazed by the number of people who came off the street and just spoke to us about these, you know, Bangladeshi tilapia farmers coming in and sort of sexing our tilapia to tell us whether they were male or female.
I think we were also very fortunate at the time when we were doing it. There was a lot of people interested in urban food growing. There had been a lot of visualizations of these skyscrapers. You don't really see them anymore. It's sort of the fad's gone. But it was definitely timing as well. And food in general, you know, everyone knows what food is. Everyone's interested in it generally. And it really galvanised people.
Yeah, and I think at the heart of the idea was essentially bringing farming into the city. And I think that's in some ways quite a new idea, and it kind of brings a lot of stories out of there. You know, people come in, they interact with their food in a very, very different way. That evolved quite quickly into this actual living and breathing thing. We had a vast number of volunteers to work with. We had a building that was transformed from an old empty shop into the shop you can go and see on the high street now. And we were able to experiment with a whole lot of range of technologies.
So once it comes up, now it's not there. But it's we were given the whole shop. It's 4 stories. Each story we've used for different growing systems. So we've got in the front of the shop, we've got aquaponics, which is the fish linked up to vegetable growing. Then on the above that on the roof, we have the chickens. That's sort of ideally placed because it's north facing. We have hydroponics in that room, which is also a meeting room, and we have a cafe downstairs, and then mushrooms and storage in the basement, and we have a fruiting room, and we do on the top floor. We've got desk space and studio space, and then out the back we've got a polytunnel with outdoor seating for the cafe.
And the aim was always to experiment. It continues to be the aim. It's experimental space. You come in and it's different things going on, and we're trying out different ways of growing food. But what we've actually, I suppose, through this experiment, I think it's something to kind of, we've certainly taken from this, is by having this opportunity to try things out, we're now working out how to do it. And like the end point of any good experiment is you kind of learn from it, and you can therefore take those things forward. And so we've been able to work out, we think, quite a smart way of growing food. We've got now a sustainable business, which is running in the shop, creating jobs, paying salaries, serving people lovely salads and sandwiches and things like that, and is a model that we think can be replicated. And that's been, I suppose, the big surprise of what we're doing. When we were head down, you know, in chicken shit, kind of learning how to grow plants, and half the plants you first grow die, you know, you get very upset about the fact. Whilst we were in that kind of zone, arguing about who's going to feed the chickens on Christmas Day, you know,
not me,
not him. All of these things, whilst that was going on, suddenly there came like floods of interest in the project. You know, we were still head down and we were still excited and doing what we were doing and learning, but we started getting people from all around the world emailing us saying, we want a farm shop where we are. We can't, hang on a minute, it's not even ready yet. But we had people from Manila getting in touch saying, you know, on our high streets we've got the same problem, shops are closing down, people with the rapid urbanisation of the city, people are actually you know, losing connection with their farms, losing connection where their food came from. And time again across the world, we kept hearing people say this. And I think you've also got to be really careful to separate the hype and the noise of those things with obviously the people who really want to do this where they are and are actually part of the same journey as you.
I'm going to talk through the building very briefly so you can sort of understand the kind of systems that we've got in place. This is the aquaponics room, which is in the front of the building. So we have 2 tanks with 40 tilapia in each. The tilapia produce fertilizer for the plants through the poo. So the poo comes through a filter system here, which takes the solids out. And then these plants are sitting on beds, floating beds that then allow the roots to go into the water, and the roots of the water feed off the nutrients from the tilapia, but also filter the water. So by the time it's gone back into the fish tanks, the water is that little bit cleaner, and that you need to get a balance between the two, so the fish and the plants. And then within that, we've also, one of the other sides of the project is it was about food growing, but it was also about getting people down there. So within the aquaponics room, we've got the cafe seating, and we've had various nights there with DJs playing at the front, and the fish always seem to be fine, and we just try to get a wide demographic of people down in the space. This is on the next level up, which is the hydroponics, a nice sun-bleached hydroponics. And this is basil growing, so we get kilos of this stuff coming out all the time. And it's a very simple system. The water just filters down through the channels to the bottom in the bottom tank. And then next to this room, we've also got a fruiting room, which allows us to do things like chilies and tomatoes and grow them all